Hello, I'm Chip Alexandru. When I started this podcast, I was not entirely sure who would be interested to listen and to what. Now, after 25 episodes and more than 1,000 downloads, I started to get some sense of what might be interesting to some of you. That's why, starting with this episode, I'm making changes to the format to incorporate some of the feedback received. The episodes will add some context to the selected AI analytics topic. The main feature will remain the interview with a leading startup working on a practical solution. I will switch to a regular weekly cadence that allows for more research and hopefully deeper commentary. I'm always glad to receive your feedback on LinkedIn or Twitter. The topic I cover today is synthetic media for enterprise. It will feature my interview with Victor Riparbelli, co-founder and CEO of Synthesia, a startup based in London. Synthetic media is also known as AI-generated media, hence the connection to the podcast theme. It includes videos, images, text, and voice that are fully or partially generated by computers. It has made considerable progress in the past few years and was popularized through applications that range from harmless and amusing, such as swapping faces with celebrities, to uses that raised ethical, legal, and privacy concerns. The biggest concerns are related to what is popularly known as deepfakes, applications that use someone's identity without consent. Technology is never good or bad, the application of it can be. California made deepfakes illegal in the context of the upcoming US election. Many other countries and organizations, such as World Economic Forum, are looking into regulations and especially how they can be enforced. It is clear that a selective, targeted regulatory framework will help increase trust and adoption. This should not take away, however, from the technology itself and the potential benefits it could bring in an enterprise context. It can reduce the cost and increase the speed of creating content that can range from advertising and movies to learning, development, or training content for all companies. It can help generate new original content, seamlessly translate in any language, or even create truly personalized segment of one content. In text generation, OpenAI, initially founded by Elon Musk as a non-profit entity, announced that they will release their text solution for enterprise use as a text-in, text-out API for content generation. I can imagine as an example being used to create new product descriptions at scale for an e-commerce site and adjust these based on user behavior. Moving on to synthetic video, we'll continue with my conversation with Viktor from Synthesia. After the recording, I will summarize my key takeaways. I'm talking to Victor Riparbelli, co-founder and CEO at Synthesia. Synthesia is a pioneer in video synthesis. Its technology could be used, for example, to generate personalized videos at scale or realistic renderings of someone speaking any language. We will focus today on potential applications in enterprise. Victor, welcome. Please introduce yourself and Synthesia.
Thank you very much, Chip, and happy to be here. So my name is Victor, and I am the CEO and one of the co-founders of Synthesia. And we are working on making video production much, much easier. And we're doing that by eliminating the need for cameras and synthesizing everything using software. My own personal background is that I'm from Denmark. Spent my early career doing lots of things on the internet, online marketing, e-commerce, things like that. Moved into the startup world and decided to move from Copenhagen to London around 4 years ago, where I pursued a initial career in virtual reality and augmented reality, which I found really interesting and I'm a big supporter of, but I think that's still a little bit into the future before we're going to see those platforms emerge. And while I was doing this work, I stumbled upon the professor who I originally also met at Stanford, Matthias Wiesner, who had done a piece of research on synthetic video creation. And that kind of sparked a thing inside of me. And I really thought that this was going to be the future of content creation. And to make a very long story very short, we decided to gather up a bunch of very, very smart academics and PhDs on the technical side, and hopefully I'm a little bit smart on the commercial side, and build a company that we think is gonna essentially revolutionize how we think about media production and specifically video production over the next 10 years.
Victor, to start our conversation a bit broader, what do you think is the future and potential of synthetic media?
I think the future of synthetic media is, the easiest way to think about it is that creating any kind of media content is going to be much easier. So if you think of different types of media today and the kind of barriers that exist, if we start off with text, right, which is obviously also a medium, it's very easy to create text. You literally just open up your computer, you type something, and you can put it on your blog. If you're doing audio content, for example, like a podcast that we're doing right now, that requires you to sit down and talk into two microphones, which is what we're doing right now. So there's a little bit more effort to create something that sounds good, right? If you are a musician, for example, want to create music 30 years ago, you probably have to get into a recording studio in LA, maybe. It'd be very expensive. You'd have to know all the right people to create a chart-topping hit. Today, we've learned to synthesize most of the sounds that are used in music. And that means that on our laptop today, you can create a chart-topping hit without the need for knowing the right people or having access to all the most expensive tools in the world. You can create media and music content purely from your laptop, right? Something like photos, we have Photoshop, which means that today you can put together more or less any photo that you want without having to use a camera. That doesn't mean people don't use cameras, of course, but it means that if you want to get that nice shot of a Coke can on top of the mountain, you don't have to go to the mountain and place the Coke can. You can take a picture of a mountain, and you can take a picture of a Coca-Cola can, and you can put that on the mountain through the computer, right? So the kind of loop from idea to final media product is much shorter. Synthetic media takes that to the next level by saying things like video, for example, which today means that you write a script, you find an actor, you get a film crew, you get a sound crew, you get post-production, then you have your video. Being something you can do entirely on your computer. And application for this, not just for video, but also for voice, is massive, right? I think as humans, we engage more with content that is more engaging, and video content and audio content falls under that. Essentially, what's going to happen is going to be democratization of creating audio and video content. That's going to be really useful in things like computer games, for example, creating corporate training and development content, which is what we primarily focus on, advertisement, where you can create much more content much, much faster, and so on. Essentially, it's going to mean that creating any kind of multimedia content is going to be much easier, and you don't have to be an expert to do it. Today, if you're doing visual effects, for example, you're probably going to have to take a degree on and spend a lot of time working on how to fix the individual pixels and how to really make something that looks beautiful. But in the future, everyone will be able to create great looking video, which is synthetic, and great sounding audio that's synthetic as well.
Now, moving on to Synthesia, what does specifically do and how does it work?
So at Synthesia, we're very focused on video synthesis, which means essentially creating video content without having cameras. So the way that works is that we have an online platform, and you can sort of create your own, think of it as like an AI avatar of yourself. You record yourself, take around 15 to 30 minutes, speaking to the camera, either in front of a green screen. You give us that footage, and once we've received that footage, we'll train our system to replicate video of you. You put that avatar onto our platform, and the way to create new content is now, rather than having to pull out your video camera and talk to it to create that LinkedIn video or whatever you're trying to do, you simply just type in text, and our system will then generate the video and the voice of you in a matter of minutes, and then you have your video content. So it's a way to make it much easier to create content. The way we do it is using lots of AI, things like generative networks or GANs, which is a method for teaching AI systems to replicate video and audio of the real world. And it's very, very effective in doing this. And a bunch of more kind of traditional visual effects things borrowed from Hollywood. So that's like the main use case and how it works. What this enables us to do, if you compare it to normal linear video, is that we can personalize things much more. You can create 50,000 versions of the same video. If you have 50,000 different employees or customers, whatever, you could create automatically a video that's individualized for all of them. And we can also help you speak any language in the world.
Where do you see some practical applications that Synthesia could have for enterprise?
So most of our clients is in the Fortune 500 at the moment. And really what we're helping with is information sharing. We help companies take any piece of information they have and very easily create a video asset that goes with that. So let's say you have an internal presentation, for example. The traditional way of doing that would be that someone probably makes a PowerPoint and you set up a meeting and you sort of go through your PowerPoint presentation. What we can do is we can very easily take that PowerPoint presentation and turn that into a video asset, which you can share with a broader circle. Maybe someone was off that day. Maybe you want to share it with with a colleague or maybe even a client or something like that. And what we enable you to do is simply just type in the script and the commentary that you have for your video, upload to our platform, and you'll get a video back. This also enables you to do it in any language, which is obviously very powerful if you work in a global corporation. The second thing, which is very related to it, is on corporate training, which we do a lot. So we help companies take their existing training content and localize it into different languages, which just massively increases the engagement of this content, which, like, let's be honest, sometimes compliance content like that is a little bit dry. So you want to do what you can to make it more engaging to people. But I think even more interesting than that is the fact that when you create corporate training and compliance content, which are sort of by definition are constantly changing, what a lot of our customers have faced in the past is that you spend lots of time and money on creating very nice video content and educational material. And then 3 months later, maybe the regulation changes, maybe an internal policy changes. Lots of things can happen, right? Which means that all of a sudden, this content is now a little bit out of date. So people solve that in two ways, or used to solve that in two ways. Either you make very generic content, which you sort of try to get to last for at least a year, but that means you miss out a lot of the details, or you do a lot of new content, but it becomes very unengaging because it will just be, the worst case is like just long text documents that you have to read. Better case, maybe text with some videos or images, but it's just not very engaging, right? What we enable you to do is you can literally update all of these courses every other day if you want to. That just means that your kind of knowledge base in the company can always have a video asset attached to it, which is up to date. And that is just, from working with our clients, a very, very big value add because information sharing is so critical when you work in a large corporation.
Could you share some success stories and perhaps the benefits that the clients mentioned they achieved?
I can bring out a few good stories. So one of them is a very big software company, one of our oldest clients actually. We've worked with them on taking a lot of the training material that they shot like years ago. A lot of it is around how to behave in the office, business ethics, and things like that. They all have like a presenter to camera, and there's some really great content in there. But they only had this content in English, and that was giving them some problems. What we did was we took all of that video content and we translated it into 7 different languages and made it available to their global workforce. We actually did some testing on what is the effect of putting subtitles or normal dubbing on the video versus using our technology, which makes it look like the presenter is actually speaking in Italian or French or whatever. We saw among young people, so under 32 years old, 12 times increase in engagement, which really is a lot. If you go into the older age group, we saw a 2x increasement in engagement, right? And that's obviously very valuable to a big corporation where you really want people to sort of internalize these things if you're trying to teach them. So that's one. Another one is we're doing a personalized learning course, one of the biggest advertising conglomerates in the world, 50,000 employees. And once they go through this course, which is about new technologies and how that affects all of our daily life, they want to educate the whole organization on things like AI and technology and how that changes their business. What we can do with our technology is that every single employee has a different role. They have a different name, of course. They work in a different group company and have different interests and different levels of knowledge, right? We can create these learning courses where we take those data points about the employees and we actually render out a personalized learning course for each of those employees, which will have slight changes depending on their personal profile. And that's really, really interesting, right? Especially when you take into account that this content can be updated continuously as things evolve and change. And we've actually created this content without using any cameras at all. So it's kind of Synthesia product end to end. That's something I'm really proud of. And I think, maybe a little bit more on the fun side, this is the last one in these COVID-19 times. We've helped quite a lot of companies take old advertising campaigns and update them to fit the current climate because no one can produce video content at the moment. We had a big car brand, for example, where we took last year's advertising campaign. We changed what the actors were saying in it and they basically remixed it. And now they have a new advertising campaign without having to use any new shots, right? That's quite interesting. We also had some funny ones with taking iconic film scenes, things like that.
So how do companies work with Synthesia?
The best way to engage with us is usually to sign up on our website, or you can send me an email. And then we sort of go through how do you produce video content today and what is it that you're trying to achieve. And then we figure out if there's a good match between us. Once you start working with us, you'll have access to our online platform, so you can create the content yourself. We have different ways of engaging. We can either provide just the very kind of core technology, which allows you to create these video assets. But we can also go all the way into helping you just give us one English video and we'll automatically translate it into 20 different languages. We can also help you with sort of very basic video editing. We have a system for, let's say you want to have some text overlays and some videos in the background and all this kind of things. We can also help you doing that. That's obviously our platform is constantly involvement. But I'd say that most of the time we just sort of have a conversation with the client around what scenario they're looking for and what business problem are they looking to solve.
Victor, as we are reaching the end, the final question. Video synthesis technology has also raised some ethical concerns. How does Synthesia ensure ethical use of its technology?
Yeah, definitely. I think as with every other technology, they can be used for good and for bad. And this technology certainly also has the potential to be used for bad. So we have our three-pronged approach. So we call it consent, collaboration, and communication. So the first one is consent. So the sort of ground rule of everything we do is that we need written consent from anyone that is synthesizing, right? So, we'd never synthesize video of someone that's not given their consent, which is obviously not really a problem given the sort of context that we work within. But we have built systems that allow you to control the consent and make sure that everything is being done according to how you wish to work with us. Secondly, collaboration. So I spend a lot of my time speaking to governments and media companies and figuring out what kind of technologies should be built that can reduce the potential harmful technologies. So that's things like detection of generated videos and media provenance change, those sort of things. And then the last thing I think, which actually I think is the most important one, is communication. And that's all about, we're moving into this world where just as you can't take photos at face value, Photoshop has been around since the early 90s. Very soon, we also should not take videos at face value, right? And I think that's a piece of like public education that's really important for us to go through. And part of that is working with educational institutions and governments. But I think a very big part of it is that we expose people to lots of synthetic videos, right? And that's going to happen. Like we're working with the BBC, for example, on how can we create automated news reports and weather reports and these kind of things. And as soon as people start getting very personalized birthday videos from their favorite celebrities, for example, or that Siri or Alexa all of a sudden has a face that'll talk to you and show you things, then we sort of get accustomed to the fact that this is now possible, right? And I think that's a really important part of it.
Victor, this was very informative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chip.
Let's wrap it up with my 3 takeaways on synthetic media for business applications. The technology and research supporting it are quite new and applications can be exciting. As with any technology, there are risks related to its use, but a combination of selective regulation, consumer education, and technology to identify what is real versus not will most likely change the prevailing storyline from risks to opportunities. In the enterprise space, valuable applications exist today. In consumer-facing media, including new media, from advertising to gaming, generating content faster and cheaper is a clear win. All companies generate media to some extent, for internal or external audiences. Here there is the same opportunity. Reduce the cost of generating and maintaining multilingual, fully personalized content. As for the future, any technology that reduces the entry barriers, changes the economics, and has creative potential will drive innovative applications. So far, the technology proved its viability. Further improvement in self-service access and cost will put it in the hands of more creators that will unleash its full potential for business applications.